So now please repeat after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om
Om
Namo
Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. So I will share my slides. Cool. So today we begin chapter 11, and this chapter comes right after chapter 10. So the context, actually, I'll first start with this chapter, is that after hearing Krishna describe all the ways in which he pervades this universe, Arjuna now wants to see Krishna as this universe, as a universal form. So after hearing Krishna say that he pervades and supports the entire universe, Arjuna wishes to see that all-pervasive form of the Lord. Krishna first describes his universal form and then bestows upon Arjuna the vision necessary to see it. So Krishna has just finished in chapter 10 showing how he's pervading and supporting this entire universe. And the final verse was Krishna saying, just with a spark of my splendor, I pervade this entire universe. Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam, Srimad urjitam evava. Just one spark of my splendor is enough to produce this entire universe. So Arjuna thinks, being the pure devotee of the Lord, he's thinking, well, then what is this form of the Lord? That how does the Lord incarnate as this universe? And so he wants to see this form of the Lord. So there's a very direct connection between chapter 10 and chapter 11. Up until this point, Krishna has been speaking philosophy. And now the second connection also is that now Krishna has spoken the most confidential philosophy. And what did he speak in the Bhagavad Gita? He also spoke the Chaturshloki Gita. And so now Arjuna is also convinced about the glories of the Lord. And so therefore, he is now qualified to see the Lord. He is now ready to see the form of the Lord. And so therefore in text 1, Arjuna starts with this point. He tells Krishna that he's now actually free from his illusion. Arjuna vacha mad anugrahaya paramam guhyam adhyatma samkitam yat tvayoktam vachastena mohoyam vigato mama. So Arjuna said, by my hearing the instructions you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects, my illusion has now been dispelled. So this is the first time in the Gita, well, in chapter 10 he also says this, but now again Arjuna says this, that he's after chapter 10, basically after Chaturshloki Gita, is saying, my illusion has now been dispelled. By hearing your instructions, I'm fully, convinced about your nature. And this word here, mad anugrahaya, is very important. That by your mercy, by your favor, I've understood all of these spiritual subject matters. Due to your mercy, I've understood and my illusion is now dispelled. So Arjuna is completely self-realized, and he's not in doubt anymore. And now, just for the purpose of rasa, so to say, just for his own happiness, or just to further appreciate the glories of the Lord, he's asking Krishna, please now, in this chapter, he's saying, please show me, um, please show me your universal form. Now, Srila Prabhupada describes that there's two specific reasons why. The first one is that Arjuna is doing this for the benefit of others. Prabhupada makes this very clear. He's not doing this for his own benefit. He is seeing Krishna as Shama Sundar face to face, or you could say Vasudev Krishna face to face in front of him. Uh, and therefore, he has no need to see the universal form. He has no, there's nothing lacking in Krishna's transcendental spiritual form, which is by far greater than his universal form. And therefore, Arjuna has no lacking, no need to see Krishna's universal form. However, he's doing this for the benefit of others, so that others can be convinced of the glories of the Lord. Others can be convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And part of this reason is that it's also showing what is the test to be God. If a person is going to be God, if someone is claiming to be God, then like Arjuna, we should ask them, please show me your universal form. Please show me how you pervade this universe, and please show me this universal form. This is the test of being God. Even Lord Chaitanya, although he was Channa avatar, although he was a hidden incarnation, even he showed it to Advaitacharya, and in this way established that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just so that future persons may not think, well, should we accept Lord Chaitanya as God or not? So for our benefit, he showed that. In the same way, Arjuna is asking the Lord to do this. And finally, Arjuna needed this done for our benefit again, because after this instruction, Arjuna has to fight and kill millions of people. So, these days people say that how there's so much violence done in the name of religion. Someone says, God came to me in a dream and told me to, blow up this building. And so therefore I did this. And um, and therefore, this is violence done in the name of religion. So someone could say that Arjuna is a similar character, that he's thinking that he's speaking to God, and as a result of speaking to God, he is killing so many people. And or we can say, someone can say, I am following Arjuna's example. My guru came and told me this, and he's the representative of God. So I went and I performed violence. I performed this heinous act because I was instructed to do so. No, this is the test. In other words, if we are going to do it on the instruction of God, then we should be sure that that person is God. Arjuna, after this conversation, this is not an armchair conversation. After this conversation, he has to make, imagine if you're having a conversation with someone, and as a result of that conversation, you have to go and be the cause of 600 million people dying, which is what they say in the Mahabharata battle. This happened. What the exact number was, we don't know exactly, but something like that. And so imagine what a heavy decision this is. And so Arjuna is not going to make this decision lightly, nor should anyone. So he's saying 100% sure. I have to be 100% sure that this person is actually Krishna. He's actually God. And only if I see it with my own eyes will I accept this. So one cannot, the message being, one cannot perform violence in the name of religion unless the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is personally present there in front of us and telling us that this is the right thing to do. Otherwise, then one has to follow dharma. One has to do it based upon not some vision or phantasmagoria, but what is the correct thing to do. So this is how this chapter begins. This is the motivation of this chapter. So the first 8 verses, Arjuna requests Krishna to see the universal form, and Krishna first verbally describes to Arjuna what he will see, so that Arjuna does not become too shocked, too taken aback. Krishna is sort of going in this gently. And also, Krishna tells Arjuna that you cannot see it with your present eyes. I will give you divine vision. So this is the the 8th verse uh, of this chapter. Now it's important again to understand, to remember that Arjuna is seeing Krishna face to face. And Krishna's form, his body, his personality, everything is spiritual, it is transcendental. So if he can see Krishna face to face with his very own eyes that Arjuna has, then why is Krishna saying in text 8 that Arjuna, you must have divine vision in order to see my universal form? The universal form of the Virat Rupa is Krishna's material manifestation. It's actually a lower form. It's a temporary form. And it's a form that Srila Prabhupada says is not a form that is very much appreciated by the devotees, as we will see later on. So why is it that Krishna is telling Arjuna that he needs special eyes to see Krishna's universal form? Would someone like to suggest an answer?
Because Arjuna is a pure devotee, and for him, Krishna wants to have a pure form, which is his own form. But universal form is more materialistic, and it is too Virat like. Until Krishna reveals and gives him a special vision, he cannot see with his limited eyes and limited intelligence and limited vision.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Sorry. Yeah, maybe just to set an example for others that it's not, I mean, Arjuna was an exception that he could see because he was a great devotee, he could see Krishna, personally. But to set an example for others that without divine eyes, without divine vision, Premanjana Churita Bhakti, without that, you cannot see Krishna.
Yes, so that is also very true, that Krishna is showing that this form is not ordinary. Without having spiritual or a divine vision, one cannot see Krishna's universal form or his two-handed form. Regarding the first comment, well, Arjuna is seeing Krishna's transcendental form. He is seeing the spiritual form. So Arjuna is actually seeing the spiritual form of the Lord. And therefore, he is not, there's no shortcoming within him. But yeah, maybe to set an example. Other thoughts?
So the qualification to see the spiritual form is devotion, but the qualification to see the material form is different kind of material eyes to see that whole dazzling form which cannot be seen by the present material eyes.
Yes, that is also a very good answer. Other thoughts?
Prabhuji, can we say that because our senses are imperfect and so we need perfect senses to see? I don't know, I'm just guessing.
Yes, that is true for us, yes. But again, Arjuna, his senses were be able to see Krishna's spiritual form, and spiritual is always higher than material. So that is true for us. But in the case of Arjuna, it's so Prabhupada actually and the acharyas and devotees have explained that Arjuna already had the vision to see Krishna face to face, to see his spiritual form, and therefore this universal form was no problem for him. He did not need special vision. In fact, When Krishna says you need special vision, then as some of you mentioned, Krishna actually was giving him eyes so that he could um, see the material form of the Lord, and for one moment not see Krishna's spiritual form, or you could say it was in some ways the effect of yoga maya, allowing Arjuna to forget or not see for that moment Krishna's spiritual form and see his material form. So in some ways, this quote unquote divine vision was there to downgrade Arjuna's Arjuna's vision. Downgrade, I mean, nothing's downgrade in the sense of Krishna, everything is absolute. But the point being that this was the effect of Yoga Maya, that Krishna is sort of hiding his spiritual form for a moment and revealing a material form. Arjuna's did not need any divine vision. His vision was already divine, it was already on the highest level. His eyes could see everything in this world because his eyes were seeing Krishna face to face. So, what to speak of some little universal form? So, very important point there.
But
Hare
Prabhuji,
Krishna.
Yes.
I mean, I thought he doesn't have any material form. So why do we call universal form as material?
No, that's the thing, that ultimately everything is spiritual, but this material world is still material, right? The material world is Krishna's, the spiritual energy transformed. That one energy, which is spiritual, transformed into immaterial energy. So like Krishna Prabhupada says, and this is why we are not Mayavadis, he says that within Brahman, there's also variety. And this is through Krishna's energy. Through his energy, he can transform Brahman. Within that oneness is also variety. So Krishna produces matter, and matter is different than spirit, right? Everything material gets destroyed. Spiritual things don't get destroyed. The body gets destroyed, but the soul does not get destroyed. So there's a difference. So Krishna's material energy is there, and this form is the manifestation, it's the personification of that material energy. So that material energy is the material energy. It is there, and this is the form of the Lord that is material. And therefore, Prabhupada is so clear in this verse. This is not the highest form. Arjuna sees it for 5 minutes, and after that, he's like, Krishna, please remove this form. I cannot see this form anymore. I want to see you again in your beautiful two-handed form. And there, Prabhupada says, if the universal form is actually higher, then why would Arjuna want to see Krishna's two-handed form again? Once Krishna, even when, and that of course is a spiritual form, but even when Krishna shows his four-handed form as Vishnu, Arjuna does not want to see it and wants to see Krishna's two-handed form, showing that his two-handed form as Shyama Sundar, as Vasudeva Krishna, is the original form of the Lord, is the best form. So Krishna has both material and spiritual forms.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
There's also another, I think someone else was also saying. Okay, we'll move forward then. So then text 9 to 31 is Sanjay's description of Arjuna's vision. So Sanjay, just see how fortunate he was. He was also able to see Krishna's universal form. This is anugraha, right? This is the Lord's mercy, that so that we all could know what Arjuna saw, Sanjay is able to see it and describe it to all of us. And then towards the end of this universal form, there's three very key verses, text 32 to 34, which Krishna says, time I am. And he tells Arjuna, become my instrument. Your role is just to be my instrument, and we will talk about this more. After seeing the universal form, then from text 35 to 46, Arjuna offers beautiful prayers to the Lord. These are Arjuna's prayers. And the final verses, Krishna again emphasizes that this form of the Lord with his two arms is only seen by the pure devotees of the Lord. So this is the breakdown of this chapter, and let us proceed now. So this is the first section here. And in this first section, there are a few major points. The main theme of this section is that one can understand the nature of the Lord's form only through the Lord's mercy. So this form of the Lord, whatever form it is appreciated, is realized only by the mercy of the Lord. And this is also the meaning of the Divya Chakshu, the divine eyes. What does really divine eyes mean? Divine eyes doesn't mean that all of a sudden you get these special pair of goggles, and now through these goggles you can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Divine eyes means the mercy of the Lord. Just like there's this anupashyati. This word in the Shastras is anupashyati, that when the devotee sees, the devotee just does not see, but he sees through the scriptures, through the Shastras, through the devotees. And that vision is very powerful. So the Sanskrit word pashyati means to see, pashyati. So the devotee does not pashyati, he does not just see, but anupashyati. Anu means through a via medium. Just like we will, when we do the nectar devotion, we will see this word anu comes very often. Anukalpasya Varjanam. That it is through the devotees of the Lord that we get Krishna. So anupashyati similarly is seeing, but seeing through the mercy of the Lord. So first point, which I already mentioned, Arjuna does not ask to see the universal form for himself, but for others, to establish unequivocally the reality of Krishna's divinity. First point. Second point, although Arjuna has a strong desire to see the Lord, he cannot do so without the Lord enabling him. The Lord therefore bestows divine eyes, Divya Chakshu, upon Krishna to see the universal form. So in this point also, this is kind of the main gist of this section, and it's a very exciting point that we can see the Lord by the Lord's mercy. And Prabhupada in one place, he writes in the purport to a Vaishnava bhajan, I think it's Srila Prabhupada's, one of his famous bhajans, which is just slipping my mind right now. It's Rupa Goswami. It's a bhajan for Rupa Goswami that he sings. Hari Hari Bifale, I think, yeah, that one, where he says, Srila Prabhupada says how the goal of this Krishna consciousness movement is to see Krishna face to face, like I am seeing you and you are seeing me. Srila Prabhupada particularly adds that sentence on there, like I am seeing you and you are seeing me. So it is possible to see the Lord, and this is the goal, he says, of the Krishna consciousness movement. In another place, he says the goal of the Krishna consciousness movement is to enter the divine dance of Lord Krishna, meaning to enter into the Rasa Leela, the dance of Lord Krishna. So this is, Srila Prabhupada was not thinking anything less. He was not bestowing upon us any small benediction. Goal of the Krishna conscious movement is that we will, see Krishna in a dream or something like this, or we will, be able to live in live in the remembrance of Krishna. That, of course, is all very nice, but he's saving the highest thing for us. He's saying the goal of the Krishna conscious movement is to see Krishna face to face, to join his divine dance, things that we think are not actually possible for us. Srila Prabhupada is saying they are possible. How? By the mercy of the Lord. So through, of course, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes a lot of spiritual effort and practice and also time. But this divine eyes, through this mercy, anugraha of the Lord, we get these divine eyes, and then we're able to see Krishna face to face. That is the purpose of the Gita and the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement. Krishna sets a criteria for being God. Those who claim that they're God must substantiate that claim by also showing the universal form. A pure devotee situated in a transcendental loving relationship with Krishna is not attracted to the universal form, rather, he is attracted to the Lord's loving features. So, that point is also there, that we want to see Krishna face to face, like Arjuna is seeing Krishna with his two arms. Krishna, the two-handed, original Krishna Stu Bhagavan Swayam. This universal form is not our goal. So while we are reading about it in the Gita, it is not our goal. So now in this section, we have Sanjay's description of the universal form. This is a very long section, and I'll be highlighting just some of the very key points and key verses in this section. So in this vision of the universal form, Arjuna's intimate relationship of friendship with Krishna is overshadowed by one of wonder. So imagine if all of a sudden your friend, your dear friend, he just, becomes this right here. Thousands of heads and thousands of arms, and Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, all within the body of the Lord. And this magnificent, transcendental, divine, awesome form. And all of a sudden you realize your friend is like this. So that will inhibit the intimate friendship. And so this is why I mentioned, right, that this is Yoga Maya. Even in Krishna's childhood Leela, this also happens to one very advanced, close devotee of the Lord. Who is that?
Mother Yashoda.
Yes, Mother Yashoda. She doesn't see it quite like this, but she sees Krishna's universal form. She sees the whole universe in Krishna's mouth. And the Bhagavatam describes that at that point, Yogamaya arranges that she sees that universal form. She becomes full of wonder, just full of wonder, and so much wonder that she cannot handle it, and she faints. And then it's said that Yogamaya again puts her spell upon Mother Yashoda. Not spell, that's not the right word. She again removes that disturbing vision of Krishna's universal form. And once again, Mother Yashoda thinks Krishna to be her own intimate child. So in the same way, Arjuna here is his bhakti, his rasa, his feeling for Krishna is being inhibited, is being disturbed by this form. And therefore, you at the end of this chapter, you see how Arjuna is so like, Jivera Sarupa Hoy. We all have a Sarupa, in an eternal form. And we'll read that verse actually. That cannot change. And if someone tries to change that relationship and that mood that we have with Krishna, it's very, very disturbing to the devotee. Very disturbing. It's like, if just to use a very gross example, if someone's a man, for them to become a woman is very disturbing under normal circumstances. Now, of course, people are changing their gender, but it's just not natural to you. If someone's a woman, it's not natural for them to be a man, because it's not their nature. In the same way, we have a Sarupa, we have a relationship with the Lord, and it's very disturbing when that is disturbed. Now, on this point of Yoga Maya, it's a very interesting point. One may ask the question that, well, Mother Yashoda, she is seeing Krishna as her child. And due to the effect of Yoga Maya, she does not know Krishna's greatness. So is it the case that Mother Yashoda lives her entire life in illusion? Is it the case that Arjuna is always under illusion, thinking that Krishna is his friend, but in fact Krishna is God? And that they only see reality for the few moments when Krishna shows his universal form to them? The Bhagavatam says, no, this is not the case. Why? Because Mother Yashoda's vision of Krishna as her child is not an illusion. In fact, that is the deepest and truest form of reality. Why? Because Krishna is actually, truly the son of Mother Yashoda. Krishna is first and foremost Shama Sundara, the small, beautiful boy who plays in Vrindavan. That is who he truly is, first and foremost. And then, as his Leela, as his play, he takes the form of this universe and Narayan and becomes God, so to say. So it's not that he is God and he becomes the son of Mother Yashoda, but actually he is the son of Mother Yashoda eternally, from beginning to end. Eternally, that is truly who he is. And that is Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. And for some time or in certain contexts, he becomes Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna is first and foremost um, uh, the son of Mother Yashoda, or the friend of Arjuna. So this is not any just vision or drama or play, but this is who Krishna actually is. And this is the way they're reciprocating with Krishna, because this is who Krishna is in those relationships. And the only thing is that in the universal form, Krishna is actually showing them a different aspect of his nature. And therefore, he takes that universal form. But Krishna is as much the son of Mother Yashoda as much as he is God. And therefore, we should not confuse this. We should not think that, oh, Krishna becomes the child of Mother Yashoda. Krishna becomes Arjuna's friend. And actually, Krishna is God. No, that is not. The reality is that everything exists within the Lord at all times, but Krishna is fundamentally the lover of his devotees. An important division takes place between verses 19 and 20. So up to verse 19, Arjuna witnesses Krishna's universal form of opulences. This form is a vision of what was described in chapter 10, how Krishna pervades the entire material manifestation. Starting with text 20, Arjuna describes his vision of the Lord's Kala Rupa form of time, a vision of how, as time, the Lord pushes all material entities toward destruction. So there's, in this description from 20 onwards, from 20 to 30, Krishna emphasizes his form as time, possibly the most important aspect of the Lord in this material world. And in these initial verses, 10 to 20, he is describing how he pervades the material manifestation. So, let's just take a little break from the slides and read these initial verses, because they're very beautiful. And then we'll talk about Krishna as time. Arjuna saw in that universal form unlimited mouths, unlimited eyes, unlimited wonderful visions. The form was decorated with many celestial ornaments and bore many divine upraised weapons. He wore celestial garlands and garments, and many divine scents were smeared over his body. All was wondrous, brilliant, unlimited, all expanding. This chapter is primarily describing this form of the Lord. If hundreds of thousands of suns were to rise at once in the sky, their radiance might resemble the effulgence of the Supreme Person in that universal form. So we all know that, in this cosmos, there are actually hundreds of thousands of suns. Even scientists today have now observed that our sun is for our solar system, but actually there's, millions of other suns. So all these suns are present in the body of the Lord. So how brilliant this universal form must have been. This is why ordinary eyes cannot see it. They become blinded by the light. At that time, Arjuna could see the universal form of the Lord, the unlimited expansions of the universe situated in one place, although divided into many, many thousands. Then, bewildered and astonished, his hair standing on end, Arjuna bowed his head to offer obeisances and with folded hands began to pray to the Supreme Lord. Arjuna Vacha Pashyami Devangstava Deva Deva Sarvangs Tatha Bhuta Vishesha Sangan Brahmanam Isham Kamalasanastam Rishi Rishinscha Sarvan Uragangscha Divyan. Arjuna said, My dear Lord Krishna, I see assembled in your body all the demigods and various other living entities. I see Brahma sitting on the lotus flower, as well as Lord Shiva and all the sages and divine serpents. Aneka bahudara vaktra netram pashyami tvam sarvato nantarupam nantam na madhyam na punastavadim pashyami vishveshvara vishvarupa. O Lord of the universe, O universal form, I see in your body many, many arms, bellies, mouths, and eyes expanded everywhere without limit. I see in you no end, no middle, and no beginning. So here we can understand there's so many arms, bellies, mouths, and eyes, right? So what does this mean? What this means is that all the arms, bellies, mouths, and eyes are actually Krishna's arms, mouths, bellies, and eyes. All the arms in this world are only Krishna's arms. Krishna acts in this world through the living entities. The living entities are not him, he is not them, but he acts in this world through all these mouths, eyes, and bellies and arms. Because anything Krishna wants done, he can get done through our arms or through someone else's arms, right? So that means all the arms in this world, all the bellies in this world, all the mouths in this world, they're all Krishna's arms, bellies, and mouths. So therefore, in Krishna's universal form, Arjuna is seeing all the arms, mouths, and bellies in this world. Your form is difficult to see because of its glaring effulgence spreading on all sides, like blazing fire or the immeasurable radiance of the sun. Yet I see this glowing form everywhere, adorned with various crowns, clubs, and discs. Tvamaksharam paramam veditavyam tvamasya vishvasya param nidhanam tvamavyaya shashvata dharma gopta sanatanastvam purusho mato me. You are the supreme primal object. You are the ultimate resting place of all this universe. You are inexhaustible and you are the oldest. You are the maintainer of eternal religion, the personality of Godhead. This is my opinion. Anadi madhyantamananta viryam ananta bahum shashi surya netram pashyami tvam deepta hutasha vakram Svatejasa Vishramidam Tapantam. You are without origin, middle, or end. Your glory is unlimited. You have numberless arms, and the sun and moon are your eyes. I see you with blazing fire coming forth from your mouth, burning this entire universe by your own radiance. Dvaya prithoridam antaram hi vyaptam tvayekena dishascha sarva drishdvadbhutam rupam ugram tavedam Lokatrayam pravyat Titham Mahatman. Although you are one, you spread throughout the sky and the planets and all space between. O Great One, seeing this wondrous and terrible form, all the planetary systems are perturbed. So Prabhupada in this purport, he says that how not only did Arjuna see this form, but even the planetary systems saw it also. And in the Bhagavatam also it is described how the different planets are actually living entities, which is not very difficult to understand. Just like we say Earth is Bhumi, right? Mother Earth is Bhumi. She is a goddess and she takes the form of this earth. And just like we have bodies, but then there's a soul in the body that pervades it and that makes it move, in the same way, the soul enters into a planet and the body is that planet. So Mother Bhumi, she is a soul that enters into this earth, and the earth is her body. Of course, she's a divine being. She's her body is like a demigod's body because she is Bhumi. She walks and talks with the demigods like Indra and all these things. So it's a divine form, divine meaning celestial, not spiritual, a celestial form. So basically, what this is saying is that those who are qualified, the demigods were also seeing this form. Like Arjuna could see Brahma and Shiva there, so obviously they were there, but he could also see Indra and Varuna, and Vayu, the breath of the Virat Rupa. So the Surya and Chandra. So these demigods, just like they could see the pastimes of the Lord when Krishna appeared on this planet, they could also see the universal form of the Lord. So from this we can understand that the demigods are not ordinary souls. They're actually very great devotees of the Lord. They're not like the pure devotees of the Lord, but they are great devotees of the Lord because they do see Krishna's pastimes on this planet. Indra became very proud, but still he was able to see Krishna. He saw the little Shama Sundar playing in Vrindavan, and therefore he mistook him to be an ordinary child. If we could see the Lord, wouldn't we think it's a pretty good accomplishment? So in the same way, this is the demigods are very advanced devotees of the Lord, and they could also see this universal form. Amihi tvam surasanga vishanti kechid bhita pranjalayo grinanti swastit yuktva maharshi siddha sangha stuvanti tvam stutibhi pushkalabhi. All the host of the demigods, just see right here, are surrendering before you and entering into you. Some of them, very much afraid, are offering prayers with folded hands. Hosts of great sages and perfected beings, crying all peace, are praying to you by singing the Vedic hymns. These verses are so special because by reading this verse, we can understand that how great is God, how great is Krishna. Like Prabhupada used to say, God is not someone who just produces some gold from his mouth. Like, Satya Sai Baba, they think he's God because he just produces some gold out of his mouth. That probably he's digested and he throws it up somehow. So that is not God. God is where all the great sages, the demigods, are offering prayers with folded hands. I mean, imagine this scene. They're singing the Vedic hymns. God doesn't get a toothache, nor does his tooth break. God is someone who, millions of people are offering prayers to him at the same moment. When he's on this planet, the whole planet becomes heaven on earth, is described when Krishna was on this planet. This whole planet was more beautiful and glorious than any heavenly planet in the heavens. Even the denizens of heaven were coming down here because this was more beautiful than those planets. All the various manifestations of Lord Shiva, the Adityas, the Vasus, the Sadhyas, the Vishwadevas, the two Ashvis, the Maruts, the forefathers, the Gandharvas, the Yakshas, the Asuras, and the perfected demigods are beholding you in wonder. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and now I'm going to move to the verses that we are looking to. This is actually also very nice. This one here. Ami chitvam dhritarashtraputra sarve sahaivavani sangai bhishmadrona sutta putras tathasau sahasmadiyarapi yodha mukhai. All the sons of Dhritarashtra, along with their allied kings, and Bhishma, Drona, Karna, and our chief soldiers also, are rushing into your fearful mouths. And some I see trapped with heads smashed between your teeth. So Arjuna is seeing firsthand that everything has already been done by the plan of the Lord. Right? Everything, all these warriors have already died. And so therefore now, after seeing this, Arjuna himself can observe this. Krishna is then telling him in text 32. So in this verse before this, I'll just start with this one. Arjuna, then being very perturbed by this vision, tells Krishna, O Lord of Lords, so fierce of form, please tell me who you are. I offer my obeisances unto you. Please be gracious to me. You are the primal Lord. I want to know about you, for I do not know what your mission is. So he's saying, what is your mission? And now Krishna is answering. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kalosmi Lokakshaya Pravriddho Lokan Samahartumiha Pravitta Ritepi Tvam na Bhavishyanti Sarve Yevastita Pratyanikeshu Yodha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, Time I am the great destroyer of the worlds, and I have come here to destroy all people, with the exception of you, the Pandavas. All the soldiers here on both sides will be slain. Krishna saying, Time I am the great destroyer of this world. So one of the most famous verses of the Gita, I'll read this purport. Although Arjuna knew that Krishna was his friend and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was puzzled by the various forms exhibited by Krishna. Therefore, he asked further about the actual mission of this devastating force. It is written in the Vedas that the Supreme Truth destroys everything, even the Brahmanas, as stated in the Katha Upanishad. Eventually, all the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and everyone else are devoured like a meal by the Supreme. This form, the Lord, is the all-devouring agent, is the all-devouring giant. And here Krishna presents himself in that form of all-devouring time. Except for a few Pandavas, everyone who is present on the battlefield would be devoured by time. Arjuna was not in favor of the fight, and he thought it was better not to fight. Then there would be no frustration. In reply, the Lord is saying that even if he did not fight, every one of them would be destroyed, for that was his plan. If Arjuna stopped fighting, they would die in another way. Death could not be checked, even if he did not fight. In fact, they were already dead. Time is destruction, and all manifestations are to be vanquished by the desire of the Lord. That is the law of nature. So the key sentence here that I want you to that we will discuss now is that Arjuna was asking, should he fight or should he not fight? What would be better? The Lord's reply is that even if he doesn't fight, they would all be destroyed. This was already his plan. So Krishna is saying, I am time and I've already decided this. This is going to happen. And then one more verse here. This is the final one for this section. Therefore, get up, prepare to fight and win glory. Conquer your enemies and enjoy a flourishing kingdom. They are already put to death by my arrangement, and you, O Sabyasachi, can be but an instrument in the fight. And the Sanskrit here is very key. This is very important to know these words. Nimitta matram bhava Sabyasachi. So this comes up many times in the scriptures. Nimitra matram. Nimitra matram means be the instrument. Just be the instrument. So this is the role or the position of a devotee of the Lord. That the devotee or any living being in this world is the instrument of the Lord. And it is our choice to be the instrument or not. But the plan is already carried out by the Lord. Therefore, Prabhupada in the purport to this one, he says, there's no question of perhaps or maybe. Krishna has his plan. We simply have the choice to be Krishna's instrument or not to be his instrument. Our credit is whether or not we want to be an instrument. Even to be an instrument is not an easy thing, right? Just like you have a musician who plays a very nice instrument. That musician is actually making the music, but an instrument is very expensive if it becomes a very good instrument, you see. So we have the choice to be a very fine, very nice instrument or not to be an instrument. So here in these two verses, the key thing was Kalosmi Loka Kshayakrit. Krishna saying, time I am the great destroyer of the worlds. So here I have a picture of this ship that's being broken. That's, well, you could say not broken, but this ship. And this ship is the picture of the Beagle. It's the picture of the ship that Darwin rode, through the many oceans. He went down the Atlantic to South America and rode it up. So Prabhupada says that Krishna here is saying that to those who don't voluntarily surrender unto me, I come to them in the form of time. Right? That Krishna comes to those who don't surrender to him in the form of time. Krishna is always there and Krishna comes to everyone. If we surrender to him out of love, then he will come to us personally. If we don't surrender to him, then he still comes to us, and we have to surrender to the Lord, as we were reading in these verses, but we have to surrender to him as time. Everyone must surrender. All the gods, the hosts of the demigods, everyone must surrender, but we can appreciate him one of two ways. And those who don't, they surrender to him in the form of time. And this verse it was a very famous verse that was spoken by someone when the atomic bomb went off. Seeing this as the energy of the Lord. So Arjuna saw the Vishwarup, but anytime we see a very awesome exhibition of some power or energy, we understand that this is Krishna's power. Where else is it going to come from? It may be misused, but it's still Krishna's power. And before, people were actually very well read. And someone said this verse when the atomic bomb went off. Who knows?
Oppenheimer, Prabhuji?
Yes, Oppenheimer, yes. So he said this verse when he saw the atomic bomb go off, that, time I have come to destroy all the worlds. Because, he got this feeling that this atomic bomb is so powerful. I mean, imagine this scene here, something like this blowing up, and he felt that this could destroy the world. And in fact, it cannot destroy the world. But Prabhupada says in one place, he says that if there is any war of mass destruction, it can only happen by the permission of the Lord. It can only happen if the Lord allows it to happen. Because we cannot even destroy this world even if we want to. Because why? Because Krishna is the destroyer of the worlds. We are not. And so if some big destruction is happening, then it has been arranged by the Lord, not arranged, permitted by the Lord, to destroy the buildup of the armies around this world. So this is what was happening during Arjuna's time. Krishna has ordained it, and this is what happens in big world wars, right? So many such destruction takes place. So in these verses, these are the points that get covered. As a super soul, Lord Krishna controls all cosmic events according to his will. As time, he is pushing all things towards destruction. The time factor is the force that Paramatma uses to run the material world. It transforms matter according to his plan. Through the time factor, Krishna has already arranged the death of all the Kurus. Arjuna need not worry about choosing to kill them or not. They will be killed by the Lord's plan regardless. Arjuna should become the instrument to execute the Lord's plan. The devotee willfully chooses to be controlled by Krishna. He becomes Krishna's direct instrument. The non-devotee desires independence from God and is indirectly controlled by Krishna through his material energy. The ultimate plan of the Lord is to purify the consciousness of the conditioned souls within the material world. Krishna is merciful to the devotees who carry out his will in the world. He gives them the credit, although he is the actual doer of the action. So this is the reason why Krishna wants Arjuna to be the nimitta matram, to be the instrument. He wants Arjuna to be the instrument so that Arjuna can get the credit, so that Arjuna gets the glory for being the Lord's devotee and carrying out his plan. And so this time factor is a very important presence of the Lord in this world. It's the manifestation of the Lord that actually brings us closer to him, directly or indirectly. On this point, I just want to make a general point that how in religion we find that people ask the question, why are people religious in this world? Why does religion exist? And the most basic reason why religion exists in this world is because of the presence of time, because this world is temporal. I think I mentioned this before, but if you look back in all the great thinkers, philosophers, in all the religions of the world, this was the first realization that they had, that this world is temporary, it's impermanent, and therefore, what is the point of this world? Therefore, they ask the question, what is permanent, what is eternal? Immanuel Kant, Buddha, even Darwin, he started his search because he realized that this world is just a struggle for existence, and everyone dies in this world. All of these people, they went on this search. So Krishna is actually our friend by being present in the form of time, Because the temporality of this world is not something we have to take on faith. This is something we can observe. And although we don't have to take it on faith, it becomes the basis for faith. Due to the presence of time, we become inspired to search out for the meaning of life. Because things are temporary, we search out what is permanent, what is eternal. So time becomes a very important catalyst for us to surrender to God. And also time is the ultimate subduer. Very, great demons in this world ultimately were subdued by time. Although they conquered all the worlds and they were, persecuting the entire world, at a certain point they had to die. And that was their ultimate defeat. So Krishna also defeats all the demons through his power of time. This time in the Bhagavatam is described as a wheel. Time is a wheel, right? Birth, disease, old age, death. Birth, disease, old age, death. And what is Krishna's weapon? Krishna's weapon is also a wheel, the Sudarshan Chakra. Very interesting. This is not by chance. It's not just a superficial connection. His chakra is a wheel, and that wheel is time. And that's why all the weapons in this world, like, Brahma has their weapon, Brahmastra, and Pashupatastra is of Lord Shiva. All the weapons, they are all lesser than the Sudarshan Chakra. They all fail in front of the Sudarshan Chakra. Why is this? Because everything ultimately is under the spell of time. So with the Sudarshan Chakra, when Krishna decides, no, this weapon or this person's time is up, then it's up. So his very weapon is the Sudarshan Chakra, which is the wheel of time. And this wheel of time, it is continuously rotating. And the planets, they're described as being ants, little ants on this wheel of time. And as the wheel moves, what happens to the ants? They become crushed by the wheel of this time. This metaphor, I'm not making it up. It's there in the Bhagavatam. So as the wheel of time moves, all these little ants, they get crushed, like this. And we're on these little planets, and of course, we get crushed long before. And so therefore, the solar system also, right, is revolving. What is it revolving around? It's revolving around the wheel of time. And as it goes, eventually it gets destroyed and then created again. Destroyed, created again. Destroyed, created again. And what is the spoke, the center of this wheel? It is the pole star, the Dhruv Tara. That is the center of this wheel. That is keeping this wheel in place because it's a spiritual planet. It's the pole star. It's in the center of this wheel. And all the planets revolve around the pole star. And as it revolves, they all get destroyed. So we have to remember that, when death comes of a relative or a friend or a family member, that this is Krishna in the form of time. When death comes to us, then Krishna is coming to us. And for the non-devotee, this death is like the rat in the mouth of the cat. It's the same teeth that is the time it is grabbing us. Ready or not, death waits for no one. But for the devotee, when death comes, when time is there, when the time has come, then that is the teeth of the cat for the kitten. The devotee is the kitten. And the kitten is in the mouth of the cat, and that kitten is feeling great pleasure, great happiness, that I am finally in the mouth of my dear mother. So that same time, which is so fearful for these materialists, right? They're so afraid of time. As I gave you that story, I think in a previous class, of my brother's philosophy professor who was an atheist his entire life. And then at the end, he was feeling afraid of death. He said, now I believe in God because I'm afraid of death. So the same thing that is so fearful for the devotee, The devotee is going into Krishna's arms, right? For the devotee, it is the arms of the Lord. And this also we find in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where I was mentioning how Dhruvatara is the pole of this wheel of time. It never gets destroyed because it's also a spiritual planet. So when Dhruva Maharaj, when he goes back home, back to Godhead, then death comes before him. Yamaraj. He comes before him. And this is the most fearful point in a person's life, when death comes before you. But Dhruva Maharaj is very pleased to see death. And death, when he sees Dhruva Maharaj, he offers his respects. He bows before Dhruva. And then Dhruva Maharaj puts his feet on the back of death and uses it as a stepping stool to board the airplane back to the spiritual world. That airplane to carry him back to the spiritual world. So that is what this is all about. That the devotees of the Lord, they are not afraid of death. They used death as a stepping stool to go to Krishna. And so Dhruva Maharaj was very pleased. He said, now I can go back home, back to Godhead. So death became a positive omen for him. The death has come. This means that now the Lord has come to take me back home, back to Godhead. Very wonderful, isn't it? So I think we just read this verse. So now the only other point that I wanted to make is that these descriptions of Krishna's already carrying out the plan, so to say, Krishna's already determining that the Kauravas would die, may lead to an idea of fatalism. That, okay, well, is this universal form showing that Krishna's already done everything? Predetermination. Krishna's already determined everything, and so actually we don't have to take responsibility for our actions. No, this is not the case. Why is this not the case? Who can say? Why is it the case that even though Krishna's already done all this and Arjuna is just the instrument, that we still don't believe in predetermination?
Because he gave us free will.
So even though he's decided everything, we still have free will. Very excellent point. It's right on the dot. Okay, very nice.
What
Krishna
exactly is the question, Prabhuji?
So Krishna has already killed all the Kauravas. So what is Arjuna's role here? So yes, he can be an instrument, but is this saying, is the description of the universal form with showing the plan of the Lord saying that we actually don't have the choice to do good or bad? Everything in the future has already been decided by God, and we are simply just little instruments. So that is the question.
Is it that we are taking part in enacting or in fulfilling the Lord's desires? So we are getting the credit for fulfilling his desires, and therefore we please him in that way and serve him in that way?
Yes, that is true. That is definitely there. And so we have the choice to be the instrument or not to be the instrument. But let's say if I do something, let's say not I, someone goes and poisons someone else, right? He gives them poison and kills someone else. Then was that person not responsible for that person's death also? I mean, obviously that person was an instrument, they did that activity, but are they also not responsible for the activity? Or is it that Krishna already had his plan, that person had to die, and this person was just an instrument, and so actually, in fact, they should get credit for it because they're just fulfilling Krishna's instrument, Krishna's plan. So the question here is, now we're looking at, we read this section, we understand what Krishna is saying, the implication of it. Someone may challenge us. Well, this is fatalism, this is predetermination. Yes, go ahead.
Prabhuji, because we are in the material world,
So we are still bound by the laws of karma, which will act on us.
Okay, so we still are bound by the laws of karma. So therefore, we are still liable. You're saying that we are
Yes.
still liable for this.
Arjuna was following the instructions of the Lord. So if we are following the instructions of the Lord as given in the scriptures to chant his names and to hear his pastimes and glories, that's following his instructions, and that's in that way we can become the instrument, not by doing unsanctioned things. Is that
Yes. So that's so we have free will. We have the choice to follow Krishna's instructions, like you're saying, which, I mean, in this case, in Arjuna's case, it was to fight. But Krishna's instruction in general is to be at least in the mode of goodness. Right? Krishna tells Arjuna the different modes and tells him transcend the modes and come to Shuddha Sattva, which is pure goodness, right? To love Krishna, to share this knowledge with others. So we have the choice to follow Krishna's instructions or not to fulfill his plan or not to. And so that is a place, like you're saying, where we have free will, we have free choice. So that is the correct answer. The only thing that someone could say is, but if everything is already predetermined by the plan of the Lord, whoever's going to die is going to die. And, in the universal form, Arjuna is already seeing the future. Krishna knows the future, and in some ways the future has already happened. Then isn't Krishna still making everything happen? And in that case, do we still have the blame? So someone mentioned this idea of karma, but even the cycle of karma is set up by the Lord. And even we living entities are created by the Lord. And so our dispositions, our natures are all there, and we perform a certain karma based upon who we are and what situation we are in. So it all seems like a plan that's been set up by the Lord. And therefore, if anything good or bad happens, then the Lord is to blame. We are not to blame.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I have one thought. I don't know whether that is right or wrong. So actually, the Krishna wanted to see how we are behaving, what is our action. So he gave us free will, but he gave us intelligence as well, that, in this situation, what is your action, and, how considerable you are for any action. So that's what I think he wants to see. And based on that, we build our karma and vanish our karma.
Okay, very nice. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
We have freedom.
Sorry.
Freedom. Yes. Gopal Govinda Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhu, I have a question here. How does one knows that the activity they're performing is the will of God or is the will of my own desires?
Exactly. That is the very question that we are asking here, that where's our desire and where's the Lord's desire? Even our mind and our senses are created by the Lord. So how can we distinguish between what is Krishna's plan and we are simply, you could say, in some ways, figments in that plan, and what is our plan? And what are we responsible for? What is Krishna responsible for?
Prabhu, like in the beginning, you said we see everything through the eyes of devotees. So if something we are not sure and we are like, oh, is it Krishna's plan or is it my plan? We can approach a devotee to guide us. And also we take shelter of sadhu, guru and shastra to decide what we are doing. And another thing I was thinking that in Bhagavad Gita, maybe second or third chapter, we read that Krishna is witness bird on the tree and we are fruit eating birds. So Krishna is not really interfering with what we are doing, even though everything is destined.
Yes.
But we are the one who are eating fruits and not turning towards Krishna.
Yes. Okay, so there's somewhere, and these is where the responses are coming in, that there's somewhere there's a balance of freedom, free will, choice, and predetermination, meaning there's a balance between our choice and Krishna's plan. So the Vedanta Sutra actually answers our question very succinctly, and I have it here. This is the Vedanta Sutra, book 2, chapter 1, text 34 to 36. You can find a copy somewhere, and it's very extensive, the commentaries. But here, in just 5 sentences, it succinctly answers this question. And as you know, the Bhagavatam is a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So the Vedanta Sutra is a very key text, very philosophical text, and it tells us this. So it starts in the form of a conversation. And to answer this question that we raised, it puts it in the form of a conversation where there's the challenger, the debater, like I was asking you, and then the respondent. So the objector says, if God is fully satisfied and content in himself, why does he create the world and the living beings? Since God is self-satisfied, he would have no reason to create. Therefore, God, Ishvara, could not be the creator of the universe. So it starts with an objection. It says, Krishna's fully self-satisfied. Krishna's, in charge of everything in this world. Why would he even create the worlds and the living beings? Let's even start with a more fundamental question. Why does Krishna even create these worlds and these living beings? To this, the Vedanta responds that even though Krishna is fully self-satisfied, he has everything in this world, he creates for the purpose of lila, or play. So if Krishna doesn't need anything, there he has no reason to create. He has no reason to do anything in this world. But he does do it. Why? Just so he can play for the purpose of lila. The purpose of this creation is lila. Now someone say, oh, well, this means it's lila, so that means, all of this is happening because of Krishna's lila. Nothing is my mistake. I'm not here because of my own choice. So then the objector says, inequality and cruelty, therefore, are due to God. It is due to the Lord. It is due to God that there's inequality and cruelty. To this, the Vedantin replies, no, like all of you said. Inequality and cruelty are due to the living being's own karma. Karma means free choice, our choice. So, point up to this point is that both things can be true. This world is the Lord's plan, or it's his lila, or it's play. And at the same time, within that play, Krishna's given us free will and free choice. This is why we have love and freedom and free choice. Because you really cannot play with someone unless they have love, the opportunity to freedom and free choice. But then the objector says, God is still to blame because in the beginning there was no karma. Right? So he says, well, it's due to our own karma, but it's Krishna who made us like this. And so still in the beginning, he made us in such a way that we would make the wrong choices. And in response to this, the Vedanta says, no, karma is beginningless. Meaning that we have no beginning, this world has no beginning, God has no beginning. All three, Ishvara, Atma, and Prakriti, are all beginningless. And therefore, our choices are truly our choices. We come to this material world out of our own choice. Krishna creates this world, like Prabhupada says in many places, to have loving reciprocation, so that he can enjoy pastimes of love with his devotees. He has manifested and keeps in manifestation all these worlds. So going back to now our 11th chapter, Krishna has decided that these demoniac people, the Kauravas, need to die. They are going to be crushed in his mouth. The future is already set. It's already there because Krishna is beyond time. So the world of time is already enacted by the Lord. However, that still doesn't mean that we don't have free will. It still doesn't mean that we have freedom of choice. And Arjuna doesn't have true choice, whether he will do something or not doing something. In other words, just because Krishna knows the future and Krishna knows the choices that we will make, doesn't mean that we don't have true choice. This is what it comes down to. So we have true freedom. Krishna knows what we will choose. And just because he knows and just because he's already made a plan doesn't mean that we don't have true choice. In Western philosophy, this is called Molinism, where it says that both things can exist simultaneously. God can be omniscient and we can also have free will. God can already decide the future, but we can also have free will. Both things are fully compatible. Arjuna has true freedom and free will. At the same time, Krishna has already decided what the future is. And he's telling Arjuna, you have the choice. Even until the 18th chapter, after he's shown everything, he's telling Arjuna, you have the choice at this point. You can fight or you don't have to fight. A way to understand this is that a mother may put a gulab jamun and a banana in front of her child. And she knows that the child will choose the gulab jamun without any doubt. She can bet all of her money on it. He won't choose the banana, he'll choose the gulab jamun. But at the same time, the child still has his own free will. And there is a possibility that the child may choose the banana. There's always a possibility. So Krishna is God, and that's why he can be inconceivable in these ways. He can give us true freedom and free will and also be fully omniscient. So I see there's a lot of questions and comments. There's just 2 more slides left. I'm going to finish them and then we'll just discuss. Because this is a very interesting point. I know that this is a very dynamic point here. So let's just finish this. So finally, there's Arjuna's prayers. These are so beautiful. You must read them in your own time. Of course, you must read the whole chapter in your own time. And then, the Bhagavatam is full of prayers. These are the Bhagavad Gita's prayers. So they're very important prayers. It's Arjuna's prayers. Arjuna has just witnessed the Lord in his powerful and opulent Vishwarupa. In awe, he offers prayers and glorification. He appreciates how the Lord is above all other beings and is the refuge of the world. After this, Arjuna, still awestruck, remembers his previous relationship of friendship with Krishna and begs forgiveness for his familiarity in those dealings. So he's awestruck, but then he's also Krishna's friend. And so he begs forgiveness that, oh my gosh, who was I, talking to and loving and, sleeping with and wrestling with this time. So here are some key important points. Lord Krishna is the supreme Lord of all. He is simultaneously involved in an intimate relationship of love with his pure devotees. So the Lord also has intimate relationship. The relationship between the Lord and his devotee is eternal. It cannot be forgotten. So this is a theme in many purports that Prabhupada says, how he says, and I started with this also, I mentioned this to you before, that the Lord's relationship with the devotee can't be changed. Therefore, Arjuna is so disturbed. Although experiencing the wondrous, powerful universal form, Arjuna remembers his friendly relationship with Krishna. The gopis, they go to Kurukshetra, they see the Lord face to face. And the Lord is there, but they want Krishna back in Vrindavan. Why? Because of that relationship. Although the Lord has body and senses, his body, they are not like those of an ordinary man. His body, mind, senses, and soul are one. They're non-different from his self. This is in text 43. Prabhupada makes this point. Although there are innumerable forms of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna is the original. Lord Krishna can withdraw the universal form and manifest his four-armed feature as Narayan because he is the source of both the universal form and Narayan. So this is a very key point. The Gita is the most famous book of Hinduism in the world. Not just Hinduism, but just for this point. It's the most famous book, most accepted book. And in that book, Narayan is coming from Krishna. If it was the other way around, it would not have been possible. So this verse proves Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. So in Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary on this section, where Arjuna is feeling very regretful, he's requesting the Lord for forgiveness. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives us the subtext. He says, the Lord is more pleased with being criticized in the intimacy of love than with intimacy weakened by knowing of his opulences. So here it said, from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Arjuna would call Krishna just Krishna and not Shri Krishna. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining that he would call Krishna just Krishna, not Shri Krishna. Also, Krishna indicates that he is the son of Vasudeva, who was a mere minister. And Vasudeva was not the emperor of the world. Whereas Arjuna's father, Pandu, was a great warrior and emperor. Arjuna, a member of the royal Pandav family, would refer to Krishna as Yadava, a member of a family unable to rule. So Yadava was actually not a title of respect at that time, but it was a title of, you could say, disrespect in relation to a king. Or he was a Yadava, a member of a family unable to rule. Also, Arjuna would at times say, "Oh, my friend," as if being condescendingly kind, as in, although I am superior to you, out of my affection, I accept you as my friend. Now, aware of Krishna's actual position, Arjuna feels ashamed and begs for forgiveness. So imagine, this relationship where Pandu, if you see the Mahabharata, you can actually understand this. Pandu and the kings of Hastinapur, they were the greatest kings at that time. This is why they had this great pride. Bhishma and Dronacharya, they were the unquestioned emperors of the world at that time. Arjuna was from that family. Krishna was, so to say, from a lesser family. And so he used to chide Krishna on this point. Yet he was the unalloyed devotee of the Lord. Imagine the greatness of the devotee of the Lord. Because obviously, this is in that affection of love, right? Criticized in the intimacy of love. Because obviously, Krishna was Arjuna's life and soul. And Krishna knew that. And therefore, he knew that these were part of that loving affection. But just see how intimate that affection is. You see? That the devotee of the Lord has that right where he will be condescending to the Lord and say, I'm better than you. And even though I'm better than you, out of my affection for you, I am accepting you. Okay, I'm going to skip this here. So only the pure devotees can see Krishna's two-armed form, his supreme form. And that is the form that is a cherished form by all the devotees of the Lord. This is the message of these final verses. When you read them, you will see Krishna himself is saying this, Arjuna is saying this, that only those who are the greatest can see this two-handed form. And so I've covered all these points here. This form is very rare. It is sudurlabham. It is very, very rare. Only through devotion, only through bhakti can this form be seen. And so therefore, this chapter also ends with the theme of the Gita, which you will see is just so obvious. Only an envious person can miss it, which is, again, it ends with bhakti. So this whole chapter was about form, right? About Rupa, the Lord's form. And Krishna concludes by saying that one can know Krishna's form only through pure devotional service. Only through bhakti can one come to realize the form of Krishna. Through devotional service, this can be realized. Bhakti yoga is the means. And even the most learned philosophers cannot know Krishna. Even the demigods can have the vision of the universal form, but they cannot see his two-armed form. And so it is only through unalloyed devotion that the Lord can be known as he is, as Krishna. Krishna established this again at the very end. This is the verse here. Krishna says to Arjuna, the form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas. No, you cannot know Krishna. You cannot see this form by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can see me as I am. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. Right? Only by undivided devotional service can he be seen, standing before you as I am. So this goes back to that same point that Prabhupada was saying, that means through undivided devotional service, you can see Krishna standing before you as he is. And you can enter into the mysteries of his understanding. So Krishna's confirming this here. So this is a very nice quote from Srila Prabhupada that sort of summarizes this whole chapter. It actually does serve as a very nice summary. Prabhupada, we have more or less seen Krishna as a Vishwarupa during wartime in Calcutta in 1942. So Prabhupada here is describing his own experience of seeing Krishna's Virat Rupa. There was a siren, and we ran into a shelter, and the bombing began. In this way, we were seeing the Vishwarupa, and I was thinking, of course, this is also just another form of Krishna. Look at how his vision. Of course, this is also just another form of Krishna. But this is not a very lovable form. A devotee wants to love Krishna in his original form. And this Vishwarupa is not his original form. Being omnipotent, Krishna can appear in any form, but his lovable form is that of Krishna, Shyama Sundar. Although a man may be a police officer, when he is at home, he is a beloved father to his son. But if he comes home firing his revolver, the son will be so frightened that he will forget that he is his beloved father. Naturally, the child loves his father when he's at home like a father. And similarly, we love Krishna as he is in his eternal abode in the form of Shyama Sundar. So this is what happened to Arjuna. He's seeing the same Shyama Sundar firing his weapons as the Virat Rupa, Vishwarupa. So he became frightened, and he was forgetting his relationship with Krishna as a friend. But as soon as Krishna removes it, then again, Arjuna remembers this is Shyama Sundar. So this is here, and when Arjun comes to this, in this section, when Arjuna, after he sees this wonderful form of the Lord, he says these very beautiful verses, his prayers. And these prayers confirm that Krishna as the person is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These prayers are very beautiful to recite, so I just want to recite them for you, and then we'll end. Where did they go? Oh, here. We could only cover some things. Like there's very beautiful verse here that Arjuna says the whole world becomes joyful by hearing your name. And Prabhupada says how this is the quality of chanting the holy names of the Lord. This is why we chant the names of the Lord, because by chanting we become joyful and the whole world becomes joyful by chanting the names of the Lord. Okay, I'm unable to find it. So anyway, we'll stop here. Okay, so are there any questions? There's any?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
So actually, I'll go in order here. Ambika Mataji, you can. You've been waiting for us.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Wonderful class. So I had this question for a long time, and I think when we were discussing today about the different rasas, Mother Yashoda serving Krishna, or being an eternal mother of Krishna in a Vatsalya Bhav. So, for us, I understand that, we have to have a relationship with Krishna. We need to serve Krishna in a certain, we have to build that relationship with Krishna. I mean, obviously for us, we start with, the Dasya Bhav, the servant of the Lord. So we know, we have that knowledge. We need to keep ourselves in that knowledge that we are the servant of the Lord. We cannot directly jump and say, I'm a friend of Krishna, or I am a mother of Krishna. So we have that understanding, and we have to remind ourselves. So but Mother Yashoda and gopis, they just spontaneously, they are the eternal associates of Lord, and they just knew Krishna. Mother Yashoda, just for example, Mother Yashoda knew Krishna just as her son. So she never thought, or she, even after Krishna showed the Virat form or universal form to Mother Yashoda, by the Yog Maya dispel, that she forgot that he's Lord. So she just knew that this is my son. So for her to act, or have that relationship with Krishna, that unalloyed love with for Krishna, I'm not comparing myself, but I think it's very natural. But for us to develop, come to that bhava, it's not going to happen overnight. I know that, or not even in this life. But I mean, how can we aim for that pure love with Krishna? Being in this material consciousness, we know that who we are and what is our relationship with Krishna. How can we strive for that pure love that Mother Yashoda has for Krishna, or gopis have for Krishna?
Yes, very nice question. See, also, even for us, we don't have to be that spontaneous love like the Mother Yashoda and the gopis have will come spontaneously, even for us, just like they have. Not exactly to that level, but it also comes spontaneously. Why? Because as we were mentioning, Jiver Swarup Hoy, Krishna and Nityadas, all of us have an eternal relationship with Krishna, which is natural to us. So once we discover that eternal relationship we have with Krishna, then we will naturally be drawn to Krishna in that way. It will be natural to us. There won't be it won't be different than for any other devotee. And so therefore it's very important to realize that our shortcoming at this point is just the fact that we don't remember that relationship. Now, to answer your question, how do we remember that relationship? Well, that remembrance is through the process of sadhana bhakti. Through the process of sadhana bhakti, we purify our existence, we develop our love for Krishna, and then one day that relationship is revealed to us. And the day it is revealed to us, then we will love Krishna in the same spontaneous way as the gopis love Krishna or Mother Yashoda love Krishna in that particular relationship. So, the answer to your question is that we gain that loving relationship by making ourselves qualified for it, by in some sense preparing ourselves for it, and then it's anugraha. It is simply mercy. Then when it is revealed to us, then Yogamaya will remove that curtain, and we will be able, and will put a new curtain on us in some ways. We'll remove that curtain, and then we will love Krishna in that spontaneous way.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. And just a short question. So, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita, to Arjuna. But, when we see about, and this is in relation to disciplic succession. So, in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying that Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to, Vyasadeva and then Narada. So, in this disciplic succession, Arjuna is never mentioned. I know it's not complete, but if you're trying to preach to somebody, we say that, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, but Arjuna is nowhere. Do we know? I mean, we have any knowledge like who did Krishna Arjuna spoke to Bhagavad Gita? Obviously Arjuna had all this knowledge. Did he told the knowledge to any specific person?
Yeah. Actually, because of this universal form, actually, this is actually a point that is mentioned. Um, Arjuna becomes the beginning of our disciplic succession. Because Krishna is God, so everything starts from Krishna. So he actually becomes the beginning of our succession. Yes, Arjuna did not write it down, so therefore we get it through Vyasadeva. But Krishna spoke it to Arjuna, right? So we are hearing what Arjuna received. And then Vyasadeva, being a great sage, could see what was going on there and he wrote it down. And so therefore we then get it from Vyasadeva. But actually, specifically because of this chapter, because the universal form is shown to Arjuna, the Lord in some ways reveals himself and reveals his knowledge to Arjuna. He becomes the beginning of our disciplic succession. Now, we also say Brahma is the beginning because, he's the beginning of the universe and Krishna speaks the knowledge to him. But Arjuna is part of that succession.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Very nice questions. Thank you. Hare Krishna. I think next is Venkatesh Prabhu. You had your hand up. Okay. Swati Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for the wonderful class, Dandat Pranams. Prabhuji, it was mentioned when you are describing the Vedantists and that dialogue that karma is beginningless. But if I'm recollecting correctly, in the beginning of our study of Bhagavad Gita, 5 things were mentioned, of which 4 are eternal, and karma was mentioned as something which is not eternal, if I'm not wrong. So then what is the difference between beginningless and eternal?
Very nice question. So nice observation. So karma is not eternal. Karma is temporary because any action we do has a beginning and an end. But the flow of karma is beginningless, is eternal. That is actually, Baladev Vidyabhushan makes this point in his commentary on the Vedanta Sutra on that verse, that the flow of karma is eternal, showing that, demonstrating that activity is the nature of the soul. There's never a time when we are merged in Brahman and we, for temporarily we may not, but permanently speaking, there's never a time we're merged in Brahman and there's no activity and we don't, all these things. No. So karma is itself always the nature of the soul. So it eternally accompanies the soul and it accompanies Krishna. And it is beginningless. The flow of karma is beginningless, like the soul is. And therefore, at a certain point, we desired to enjoy separate from Krishna because we were always active. We were with Krishna. We were active at that time.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can I make a point?
Sure.
So it's just a comment, but the other 4 things are eternal in the sense that they have no beginning and no end. But karma, in the sense of, not in the sense of activity, like regular activity, but in the sense of accumulated karma, has an end. Meaning, like when we shed all our accumulated karma, then we are ready to go to Golok Vrindavan. So in that sense, we can say that the accumulated karma is not eternal in that it has an end. We can shed off all our accumulated karma before we go to Vaikuntha.
Well, that's a good point that you raise. Now, karma is also endless in the sense that the word karma itself just means activity in the most broad sense. So you're absolutely right. In terms of material existence, our accumulated karma has an end. It gets burnt when we surrender to Krishna. But
Yep.
karma itself, just in terms of karma, means activity or action. Karma means action. And that is eternal. That is also endless. And how do we know this? Because in the Gita, Krishna says, Janma karma chame divyam. Krishna says, my janma, my birth, and then he says, karma, my karma is divine, it is divya. So karma, in a certain context, means the law of karma, like you're saying. It means the law of karma, the karma that binds us to this world. But that's just in a certain sense. The word karma itself, even Krishna does karma. Karma means activity. And that's the sense that it's being used in the Vedanta Sutra. In the spiritual world, before falling, we had karma, we had activity. Once we go back to the spiritual world, we have activity. And in the material world, we also have activity. A soul is always active. Very nice. I'm glad you raised this point. Okay. So on this point, just on this point of karma, can you please state the 5 eternal things, including karma? Hare Krishna Gita. So the five things, which are the 5 themes of the Gita, are Ishvara, God, the Atma, the self, Prakriti, nature, is also eternal. And then today we talked about Kala, or time. Time is also eternal. Time itself is eternal, although time ends everything. But time itself, Kala, is eternal. And the last 5th one, which is not eternal, is karma. So karma is not eternal, and activity has a beginning and end. But the flow of karma, that is eternal. That is beginningless. That is always accompanying the soul. Okay. So now next person here, I think, was Rohan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Shri Prabhupada. Thank you very much for the nice class, Prabhu, especially the discussion around the point where you said that just because Krishna knows what we will choose does not mean that he's not going to give us the free will to make the choice. So just wanted to share something, Prabhu, something that a one-liner that I had heard, that Krishna is responsive to our desires, but we are responsible for our desires. So I had a small question around that, Prabhu, that you said that somewhere there is a balance of freedom, free will, and predeterminism. So when we say predeterminism, is that something that we are the impressions and the conceptions of happiness and distress that we are carrying from our past lives into this life? Just like when in the Mahabharata, when Duryodhana is chastised, he says that you blame me for my weakness, but what can I do? I was born this way. So is that predeterminism that we are referring to?
Okay, good question, Prabhu. Thank you for your comment, and very good question. In the case of Duryodhana, no, that's not what we're referring to, because his quote-unquote low birth is also his choice, and it's also his choice not to change. What we mean by predeterminism and free will, the choice between, is that Duryodhana has limited options at that time, right? He cannot all of a sudden be the most powerful person in the world. He cannot be the greatest archer in the world. He can work within the boundaries that's been given by Krishna. And within those boundaries, he has the choice. Does he want to accept Krishna's peace proposal, or does he not? Does he want to surrender to Krishna, or does he not? Right? So we have free will, but we have free will within certain bounds. Another example, which I think illustrates this better, in World War II. So Krishna might have decided that this war has to happen for whatever reason. There's collective karma, there's individual karmas that Krishna was getting done through this war. So World War II is happening in Germany, right? The Jews were being terrorized, and the citizens of Germany were under this ruthless dictator called Hitler, right? So under that dictator, they did not have much choice. They were being drafted into the war. Regardless if they agreed with it or not, the war was going to happen. But so that from their perspective, the fact that a dictator took such a powerful position and was keeping that power might have been the predetermined by the Lord. But they had the choice at that time to actively support his plan, or as many of the Germans did at that time, help in trying to hide some Jews in their home and try to save their life, and give them food to the degree that they could. So that's a very good example of predetermination and free will. They don't have the choice to change the situation. It's already predetermined. But within that situation, they have the choice to lean towards goodness and compassion and care, or to lean towards further, selfishness and violence.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very nice. Hare Krishna.
Just like another quick example, like I'm a human being. So that's predetermined by the Lord. I cannot fly in the sky like a bird. That's predetermined. But then I can take an airplane or I can drive a car. And how I do that, that's up to my free will.
I've also heard of this example, Prabhu, in terms of discussing the free will. Like you have, for example, you have the free will to choose to get on a plane. But once you have taken a seat on the plane, then you don't have, your free will is restricted. Your movement is restricted within the plane, and the plane just goes, and you have to land where the plane has to land. And then you have very little choice, except of just moving inside the plane a little bit. So, but the choice to get on the plane was initially made by you. That is the limited free will that you have.
Yes, Prabhu, and that is my brother's analogy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu, for doing that. So you have. I mean, this is why the gunas are so strong. If I go to a brothel or a bar, I will undoubtedly fall down. But I have the choice to go there or not. And that's where my choice is. And very similar in the case of Duryodhana, he chose his friends. Once he had the bad friends, it was very difficult for him to get out. Of course, even there, we have some choice. Like when we're on the flight, we have the choice to jump off, or to terrorize the passengers in the flight or not to, or to be a good passenger or not to be. So we never completely lose our choice. But material nature is so strong, our primary choice is the association that we choose. Once we're in the wrong association, then the modes of nature take over. And so we have to see, where do I have my strength? And that's where I need to make my choice. So nice point, Prabhu. Thank you.
I also have this one question regarding this example, Prabhu. So the choice that we make initially also, but we also bring a lot of baggage, right, in terms of our Purva Janma Vasanas. So how much is that contributing to the choice that we make? Is it forcing us, or what is the proportionality of us choosing things out of our own free will, or how much is the Purva Janma Vasanas influencing us and pushing us towards the choice that we are trying to make?
Yes, so the Purva Janma Vasanas, they are also limiting us. In some ways, they're determining what we can do. And so they affect our existence, our choices. But still, we have, we have the option to surrender to Krishna. That's always there. And then Krishna says, I then burn away all your past karma. That includes the Purva Janma Vasanas. But that is another limitation, not coming from Krishna, but our own choices. They mold who we are in this life. They affect who we are in this life.
Probably that is why the mercy of Vaishnavas is so important, that they help us, push us away from our Purva Janma Vasanas and help us guide towards the right path.
Yes, No, and that's the strong mercy that we need to break out of those millions of lifetimes of vasanas. That the devotee's mercy breaks through that. Okay.
Prabhuji, sorry. In this context, they say buddhi karmanusarani. So, and sometimes we see that people go down on the path of self-destruction. Seemingly, they are not able to stop themselves because that's how their intelligence is. So, how can, because our buddhi is also guiding us on, whether to surrender or not. So, how can we get out of this cycle?
By using our free will. We always have some free will, and by the mercy of the devotee. These two things. Vrinda Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Very nice class as always. Prabhuji, you showed one slide where it mentions that Arjuna witnesses the Vishwarup and then he asks of forgiveness because he remembers his previous relationship with or friendship with Krishna. And then he's feeling bad for his familiarity in those dealings. So then what happens after Kurukshetra war? Is he still not his friend? Or, he becomes informal. What happens?
Well, very similar to what happened with Mother Yashoda. See, in order for Arjuna to see that form, in some ways, Yogamaya, put a blanket over his rasa with Krishna and allowed him to experience this wonder and awe. But the moment Yogamaya removes that same rasa, that same mood of friendship once again gets reestablished. And the devotee may even remember, but it doesn't affect the devotee's relationship. I mean, I really don't know. Did Arjuna completely forget the Vishwarupa form in the same way that Mother Yashoda forgot that vision completely? Or does he remember it to some degree? If he remembered it, it would affect his relationship. So I would think that he completely forgot it. But that relationship between Krishna and Arjuna is eternal. And Prabhupada, not Prabhupada or the Acharya, someone in our movement says that how during even the battle, Arjuna was kicking Krishna's left and right side of his body to give him directions, because that's how the warrior would give directions to the charioteer. They would tap or kick the left side if they needed to go left, and the right. So like this, they were doing that. So yes.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I have another small question. Like you quoted you showed this slide of Prabhupada where he was mentioning that the bombing in Calcutta was like a Virat Rup of Krishna.
Yes.
Can we also say that the current pandemic is like Virat Rup of Krishna?
Well, see, what is the fundamental essence of this Virat Rupa? The fundamental essence is time. Krishna appearing as time. So when we experience Krishna as time, that is death, and not as the Lord who is reciprocating love. When we experience death in this world, we are experiencing Krishna in his Virat Rupa. So yes, it could definitely be likened to that, because Krishna is coming in the form of death. Millions of people have died because of it.
Yes. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Okay, I think Kalavati Mataji, you haven't asked until now. Oh, sorry. Before that, a couple Prabhu. Kapil Sharma.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, thank you so much for such an insightful message in class. Prabhu, quick question. In the beginning, you mentioned that Arjuna, he wants to see the universal form, not only for himself, but for others as well, for others' benefit as well. But part of our discussion, we also understood that it's nearly impossible for one to see without Krishna's mercy. So isn't it paradoxical, like in nature, that I want to help others, but how can I help them without them getting the mercy of God?
Yes, so very nice question. We won't be able to see it, but the Gita is describing it. In other words, Arjuna is demonstrating it for us, that this is what the test is to be God. And this is what Krishna showed. So now, of course, we do need to take it on faith until we see it ourselves. That is true, but faith is incremental. Like Prabhupada says, gradually our faith develops, gradually it increases. It doesn't increase overnight. And then one day when we see the Lord, then our faith becomes fully complete. But the point being that Arjuna, being a king, is actually doing it for all of us. It's his duty to give this knowledge to the citizens. It's his duty to give it to all of us. And so therefore he's asking Krishna to show this form.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you. Good question. Hare Krishna. Kalavati Mataji, you can go.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I had a question. I wanted to relate something from chapter 10 to this chapter. I'll try my best to articulate the question well. I'm not sure I'll be able to do that. So in chapter 10, verse 12, Arjun has realized and is convinced that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And then again in chapter 11, verse 41 and 42, Arjun again is having, he's sharing the regret due to another realization he's had about who Lord Krishna is. So I wanted to understand, that how is that realization that Krishna has, Arjuna has had in chapter 10 different to the realization he's had in chapter 11?
That's a very interesting question. Very nice question. The question is, in chapter 10, Arjuna realizes that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then why doesn't he feel regretful at that time? Because, it's the same point. He's God in either case, and he was treating God as his friend. And now when he sees the universal form, then now he's asking for forgiveness. I think this is why Arjuna taking the role of a conditioned soul. So Arjuna is also, you could say, playing a part in this Bhagavad Gita. So playing the role of a conditioned soul, Arjuna, after seeing the universal form, is fully convinced and also realizing just who God is, right? Okay, so in other words, we know that God is God. We all do. But yet when we go to the temple in front of the deity of the Lord, who we know as God, we may, be talking, chit-chatting with other people. Even though we know he's God, Krishna is there, but we don't know what God is. We know God, but we don't know what God is. And so Arjuna initially, he realizes, okay, Krishna is God. I'm fully convinced of what you're saying. But the stark realization of just what God is, who was this person who was my friend, comes to him after seeing the Virat Rupa. And then he starts to regret, oh my gosh, why is it that on the altar I was talking to someone else when I should have just been focusing on Krishna? Why is it that I, performed this offense to the Lord? Why is it that I didn't cook the sweets even nicely because this is for Krishna? Like we know it's Krishna, but it's like, okay, well, he's Krishna, but he's Krishna, and he'll take this old flower and all kind of, it's okay, I still, he's Krishna like a friend Krishna. And Arjuna is now realizing, no, this is Krishna, God Krishna. This is like really something really amazing.
Thank you. That was a wonderful explanation. Thank you so much. Prabhuji, I had a very small question, if you don't mind. So in I can't remember which verse in chapter 11, but it said that the demigods were very much afraid when they were entering Krishna's mouth. I was just wondering why the demigods would be afraid. Like some demigods were very much afraid.
Because some were, it was just like they were afraid when Nrsimhadev was very angry. Lord Nrsimhadev is super angry, and so they're all super afraid, and the only person who's not afraid is who? Prahlad Maharaj. Why? Because he was the devotee. Of course they were also, but sometimes to illustrate the greatness of a devotee, it's said like this. He was the only devotee there who had the unalloyed devotion to the Lord, who was spontaneously in deep affection to the Lord, where he only saw the cat as his mother. He was so convinced of the Lord's love that the Lord's so-called fearful form was a form of affection. Like Prabhupada says, the lion and the lion cub. Only the lion cub can see the lion as a loving, gentle creature. No one else on the planet can. So in the same way, these demigods, they're not fully devotees, right? They're still mixed devotees, as we know. So they know this is God, this is Krishna, oh my gosh, but he's angry, oh my gosh, is he going to destroy me? And so they still have material desires, they're still attached to their material body. They are afraid that Krishna's anger might, destroy them. So this is why, they are still afraid of Krishna's terrible.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Brandy Mataji?
Hare Krishna. Okay, I'm going to try to figure out how to explain my question as best as possible, so I hope you can follow me. I think it goes back to our question earlier of like understanding where the responsibility lies within the individual or Krishna's plan. But how do we understand like where our true intentions and desires are versus something that like we think that we desire one thing and then we don't get like what we were expecting, right? So how do we understand like if this is Krishna's way of showing us that maybe we had deeper subconscious desires and anartas we needed purified, or if this was just his bigger plan in and of himself for our growth? Like, I don't know if this example exactly fits, but I was just kind of thinking too while you were speaking that Arjuna, his intentions and desires were to serve Krishna, but he didn't anticipate that he would have to go and kill thousands of people in his family. So yeah, I hope that makes sense.
So that's a good example that Arjuna, his intention was to serve Krishna, and then he didn't realize that serving Krishna meant fighting this battle. And then how do we know? Also, I think part of your question is how do we know if if what we desired was our own desire or something that we're desiring for Krishna? The only way we can know is through Krishna's pure representative. That's really the only way, because otherwise we will end up tricking ourselves, and Maya will end up misleading us. And this is the only way that Arjuna also knew. Right? Arjuna, he was completely confused. He was his mind was reeling, his body was shaking, the hairs on his end were standing on end. And finally he gives up and he says, Krishna, you please guide me. What should I do? You please guide me. So even we find in this movement, even the very advanced devotees of the Lord, they have some devotee that they consult, or even Srila Prabhupada would ask his own disciples, what do you think? What is your opinion? Because he understood that Krishna speaks through the devotees. And the only devotees he had around him on 26 Second Avenue or in America or wherever he was were his disciples. And they were much younger than him. They were more neophyte, but he still knew that Krishna will speak through the devotees. So clarity of mind can only come through that. And Krishna is saying this also in the Gita, Tushyanti cha ramanti cha. In conversation, the devotees understand me. So it's the conversation between the devotees that actually reveals things. More than sometimes even classes, but when we converse with devotees, then things get very clear. His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj is a very nice example of this. He was Prabhupada's very close disciple and a very great spiritual master in our movement. And he also mentioned this many times, that he had some devotees he deeply trusted. They were also, very much in the same mood, and he would converse with them when difficulties would come, to clarify that. So our desires are in line with Krishna's desires. Either through the heart, Krishna can reveal them, like we're seeing in the 10th chapter, Krishna saying through the heart, or through the devotees.
Thank you. That was very helpful and relieving. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. and Ras Vilas Prabhu.
I just wanted to make a point regarding Ambika Mataji saying that, what is our Swarupa. I was also, very curious at one point. But then when I was chanting, it just came to my mind, like, a relationship with Krishna is like, it's like, a pizza. The pizza foundation is service. And above that pizza, whatever topping you put is the rasa that you have. But the foundation is there of service. So no matter what I may be, I don't know what, whatever rasa I might enjoy with Krishna eventually, but the foundation is service. So it starts from today. So I don't have to wait till I go to the spiritual world to enjoy with Krishna. I can start right very today, when I'm cooking or even I'm brushing my teeth, that the way you told in the first beginning classes. It is my service to Krishna to brush my teeth for his pleasure. So that point I wanted to, share. And another point about, the Yashoda Mai forgetting that Krishna was God. So from for material world, we have to go to the understanding that Krishna is God. But pure devotees in the spiritual world, they have the understanding, but the love is so dominating that the love eclipses the understanding that Krishna is God. And and most of the time it is eclipsed that Krishna is God. So they can sustain that that without that awe and reverence that Krishna is God. So that is something I had heard in the class, and I really liked it, that because I was very confused always. How can somebody not because he's God, you can see it is so visible, he's lifting over the hill, and you suddenly forget how is it. But yes, the love eclipses that understanding of God. But for me today, I have to go to the level of understanding that Krishna is God. So that's what I wanted to share. And my husband had a
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, while you were while there was a discussion going on about predeterminism and free will, one thing that came to my mind is the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. If you have done advanced physics in that, this is a point that is, they talk about the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, and what that principle says is you cannot figure out the position and the velocity of object at the same time, and this is at the atomic level. Basically what happens is at the atomic level, even the process of observing something, you pass on energy to that object. So for example, an electron, when you're observing an electron, you pass on some energy to the electron, and then after that you cannot predict what is the velocity of that electron because of the action of observing. But what I was thinking is, Krishna actually he disobeys the rule of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, because his process of predicting the future actually does not modify the future. And the reason for that is he's pure spirit. So when he's observing the future, he's observing things of what's happening in the material plane. But because he's pure spirit, he can be completely independent of material things. And that's why even when he's observing, it has absolutely no impact on the material thing at all. And things are still going to happen the way he has predicted it's going to happen. So, past, present, and future. There are other personalities also who can see past, present, future. And, Krishna, of course, he knows everything past, present, future. So just this point came to my mind. I thought I would share about it. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, all 3 points were very nice. What Mataji had said initially, I just want to highlight that one, the very first point, that the basis of all these rasas is service. So actually there's only one rasa, and that is seva, service to the Lord. That's our constitutional position. And that service manifests in different ways. At the same time, also just to add to this point, we shouldn't assume that the basic rasa is one of awe and reverence. The basic platform is one of service, but that service can be expressed through, as service, it's expressed through parental love. So Mother Yashoda, her basic rasa, you could say her foundational rasa, is service, which is common to all 5 of them, but service as Krishna being her child. And then, at times she she may, like you're saying, that love is so strong that it eclipses, even when Krishna does wondrous things, she's not able to understand that he's God. But it's not that her basic rasa is one of on reverence, and through love it becomes Vatsalya rasa. Who she is, she's always Krishna's mother. That is her basic rasa of service as a mother of Krishna, like you're saying. So that was a very wonderful point. Thank you very much. Okay, now we have Champaka Latta Mataji. I think you're next.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much for a wonderful class. I had a question, Prabhu, when we talking about Vishwaroop, universal form. Like suppose, like we talked about atom bomb or any kind of like this 911 airplane, right? And everything. So we can say that time that Krishna came in form of Kal. Okay, but the people who were actually inducers, who created this, like terrorist attack or anything, will we call them instrument? No, right? Like, will they end up being a devotee because they were instruments? They did whatever Krishna wanted them to do, or will they end up in hellish planet? How do we look at it?
And that's exactly why I had that discussion. I'm glad you brought this point up, because that's exactly why we had that discussion from the Vedanta Sutra. That our freedom and free will, we are still responsible for. The freedom is whether or not we want to act by the Lord's plan or we want to act by our own plan. But it's not that because everything is predetermined, the Lord has done, that any plan that we do is Krishna's plan. It's not that we are Krishna's instrument, whatever we do, because everything is part of Krishna's plan, because Krishna knows the future. If a terrorist goes and blows up a building successfully, Krishna knows the future. That means Krishna's already done it, because it's already there. It was already done. It was already there in the future. But that was not Krishna's plan, even though it is part of his plan, even though it's part of the future and it's already happened in some sense. That is our plan because we chose to do it out of our free will and not follow Krishna's desire. So the point being, our free will, we have the free choice to do what Krishna wants us to do, that is, do our plan or do Krishna's plan. In spite of the fact that in some sense, every plan in this world is Krishna's plan, because nothing can happen, not a blade of grass moves without the permission of the Lord. So Krishna allows it. The material world itself, with all of its pain and suffering, is all part of his plan. But we are still liable for the times when we don't act according to Krishna's instructions and we act according to our instructions.
So here Arjuna is not liable though, right? Because Krishna himself is telling Arjuna to fight and he's following instructions, even though it's a destruction, but because he's following instruction, he's not liable.
Yes.
Am I right?
And that's why at the end of the Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, this is the final instruction that he has to him. He says, I've told you everything, now you decide what you want to do. Do you want to follow my plan or do you want to follow your own plan? So yes.
So in this situation, he's following Krishna's plan. But in our situation, we follow what, Prabhu? Sorry.
In our situation, we may or may not be following Krishna's plan. In our situation, we have to follow Krishna's plan by following what he said in the scriptures, right? So that is Krishna.
Got it. Prabhu, I had one more question related to that. I know this question might be silly, but why the destruction is important? Is it because of the evil people? Because
yeah, that's a good question. I also wonder. It's like you hear about these wars and everything destroying, and it's like it's a little mind-boggling, right? It's like, why does Krishna destroy everything like this, and why does this he allow these mass-scale wars? Why is it important? It's it's the very thing that makes this material world unattractive to us, and why we then know this is not our home, right? It's just it's just the way that it is. It's like Krishna, this is how he purifies the soul, this is how he Because the fact is that everything gets destroyed. So, I mean, at the end of the day, the point is everyone dies. So Krishna is destroying everyone and then restarting the cycle. So it's his way of teaching us. That's the only way we can understand it.
Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Hare Krishna. Gopal Govinda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Enjoyed the discussion so nicely. All the great devotees and wonderful discussion. Thank you for these classes. The free will and these topics are there. So I just came to my mind 2 points. Everything is planned, and Krishna has like whether you follow the plan or not follow the plan, still it is Krishna's plan. That's a wonderful statement. I really like it. And 2 instances came in my mind. When Bhishma Pratama, he was determined to kill Arjuna, and then Lord, he picks up the wheel. So that was one incident. Was it in the plan or not? And there's another incident when Arjuna's side, he takes the vow of suicide, the Jayadratha case. Yeah. At that time, Krishna had to intervene again with the hiding the sun. So I was just curious to know how it is. Was it in the plan or not in the plan? Of course, it's eventually it's the plan, but it's like out of ordinary plan. Something looks like.
So I'm so glad you brought this up, because I was thinking of this, and I just like, you know, how you, when you speak, it slips your mind. When Krishna, when in the Kurukshetra war, when he decides to break his promise, and he picks up a weapon, you know, he says enough is enough, and he wants to like really chastise Bhishma Dev. What does he pick up? He picks up a wheel. Again, his weapon is a wheel, the wheel of time. It's like time's up, Bhishma Dev. It's like you've played around enough with my unalloyed devotee Arjun. If you continue this, I'm going to finish you. So Krishna is feeling angry at that time. Like this, the acharyas have told us that when Krishna, when he goes to his mother begging for yogurt, or he has tears in his eyes because of hunger, Krishna is actually feeling hungry. Krishna is actually wanting the butter. It's not just that he's just playing a part. No, he's actually feeling this. So in the same way, when Krishna was feeling angry at Bhishma, he's actually feeling angry. You think, well, what is this? Well, see, this is all Leela. This is all pastime. And this is definitely in the plan of the Lord. Because, I mean, on this level, it's definitely the plan of the Lord. Because this is what increases the ecstasy of the relationship. Just like, why did the gopis have to be married? They loved Krishna so much. If they were not married and they could have become Krishna's wife, you know, it would have been so much more, you could say, blissful. But why were the gopis already married when they saw Krishna? Why? Because it increased the intensity of the love, of the affection, by having that obstacle. The obstacle of their marriage increases their love for Krishna and Krishna's love for them. It increases the joy in the relationship. In the same way, Arjuna is taking that vow that, you know, I'm going to kill myself if I don't kill Jayadratha. It increases the beauty, the excitement of that pastime. Because now Krishna and Arjuna, they're on this battlefield, and all of a sudden, you know, they have a time limit. They're on a timer. Everyone knew that Arjuna could kill Jayadratha, and it was only a matter of time he'd finish him. Jayadratha was nothing in front of Arjuna, even materially speaking, in terms of his skill in archery. But what made it interesting is that Arjuna had to do that in a certain amount of time, and Krishna helped him. And then sunset came, but Krishna made the sun rise again so that Arjuna could fulfill his promise. So to glorify his devotee, Krishna, you know, so he could fulfill his promise, Krishna even changed the course of the sun. And that was what made the pastime so beautiful. In the same with Bhishma Dev, Krishna wanted to glorify his devotee and show that his devotee's vow is more important than his own vow. And so therefore, in order to keep Bhishma's vow, he breaks his own vow. And so Krishna plans that pastime in that way so that the devotee and Krishna also feel more pleasure. And in that pastime, Krishna also forgets. This also Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, Krishna forgets that he's God. Krishna forgets that, Krishna, may in that pastime, he he can truly enjoy when he actually feels those emotions. He forgets that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead when Mother Yashoda is there, or when he's dancing with the gopis. Not just the gopis forget, but he also forgets. And how is this possible? It is possible only by Krishna's Achintya Shakti, his inconceivable energy, where he can simultaneously participate in that pastime and also simultaneously be God. So, this topic of Maya is actually very, very, you could say, is a big interest of mine, because it's very close to my heart, because my book is on Maya, right? So these topics are discussed in detail in this book. This very section of the Yoga Maya is discussed in detail on how Krishna can be both the Supreme Personality of Godhead and can also forget himself and forget that he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is discussed in detail not by me, but by the acharyas, and it's presented in here. They explain that Krishna does both simultaneously.
Thank you, Prabhu. That's a nice explanation. Thank you.
Thank you. Param Karuna, Prabhu. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So thank you so much. In one of the previous classes, I think you had mentioned about one point that the living entity has to, everything is sanctioned by the Supreme Lord, but the living entity has to have the appropriate credits to be able to be allowed to sanction for the Lord to sanction him. Like, I think you gave the example that, if I go to a store and I want to buy a particular dress, if it costs $200, but I only have $50 in my pocket, then I cannot get it. And so that's not sanctioned. That would not be possible for the Lord to sanction that to me, because I haven't accumulated that credit. So for going in the example or the discussion about where somebody does certain actions that are sinful actions, is it fair? Is it a correct understanding that to be for the Lord to sanction it to us, we must have accumulated some credits, some past credits to
yes, Prabhu,
enact that?
Yes, I would put it maybe in a different way. I would say the Lord's sanctioning is our accumulation of credits. You see, so in other words, except in the case of his devotee, where Krishna's reciprocating personally, but in general, the Lord sanctions when we do have the credits. You see, so they're in some ways one and the same thing. Because Krishna has set up a process in place, the law of karma, through which we can do things, but we can only do them if we have the credit to do them. So even to be a big demon requires some piety. Everyone can be a small demon, but to be a big demon requires some piety, because they have the Lord's sanction to be a big demon is itself the good karma that person has, along with the bad karma that they have due to which they're a demon. Does that make sense? Yes.
Yes, probably.
Yes. So the sanction is itself our karma in the general case, because the Lord does not get involved in particular people who are not his devotees. He lets the system take care of it. Just like this government does not get involved in individual citizens, the president does not. He just lets the system take care of it. So, yes.
So these criminals, if somebody asks us a question, that they may have done certain pious activities in their past life, because of which, plus they might have done sinful activities that gave them that sinful propensity, but there was some pious credits as well, which basically the system caused, or the Lord through the system allowed them to enact those sinful actions successfully. Is that a fair understanding?
Very nicely put. You put it very nicely, because I mean, you know, it was their pious karma why they were able to, you know, just like, I mean, now that he's not president, we can speak of him like our President Trump, right? So he, you know, I mean, there's many people like him, but he has some piety due to which he became the president. And he could then exercise his desires and fulfill his desires because of the austerity / piety that he performed, due to which he got the position. Same thing with Hiranyakashipu. You know, he performed such great austerities, even though his mentality was demoniac, but he performed such great austerities. That's why he got that position. So in the case of President Trump, it was because he arranged for the Rath Yatra carts, and he gave the land, you might have heard, for the carts to be built in Manhattan. And Jayananda Prabhu actually used that land, and he approved of it. And so actually, the reason I say this, when my spiritual master heard this, you know, this news came out, the devotees passed it around. When he heard it, then he said, "Oh, of course, that's why he became president." So you know, you know, he didn't have really any good credit, but he did something very good. The Lord was pleased, so he gave him some you could say some credit as a result of that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Those of you on the call who don't know Param Karuna Prabhu, he actually has been for many years leading sessions on Bhagavad Gita for executives, complete karmis out there, and he teaches classes on Bhagavad Gita very successfully to non-devotees, and through that makes them into devotees. So he's, and you can see he already knows all of this Gita knowledge, but he's taking the course and he's putting his full heart into it. So even though he knows that he's still putting his full heart into this Bhakti Shastri. So very nice example. Okay, so last questions here. Narayana.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So is the destruction planned by Lord Krishna, is his exit policy for the universe?
Yes, it's the exit policy of the universe. Yes. I mean, what to speak of small destructions, but at the end, the whole cosmos is annihilated, right?
And in the process, Arjuna has to do his duty as a best and the best archer at that time.
Yes.
Is that the way it has to be taken?
Yes. I mean, well, so your question is what, this last one?
No, Arjuna as a best archer, even though he understood Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, Supreme Godhead, he has to do his duty for killing the others, even though they were killed beforehand by Lord Krishna.
Even more than duty, he has to do his service.
Oh.
Krishna can do everything, but he wants us to serve him. And so he has to do his service to Krishna. Because why? Because as we saw in the Virat Rupa, all the millions of arms, bellies, hands, they're all Krishna's, right? So our hands are actually Krishna's hands. So the way actually Krishna does everything is that he does it through our hands. He does it through the hands of his devotees, especially. So Krishna, he has to do his service to Krishna.
Very nice. Thank you. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Okay, so I think this is everything. If unless anyone has any question remaining, we will stop here now. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna,
Thank you, Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Dandavat pranam. Thank you
Thank you,
so
Prabhu.
much.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.